If you are an African, before you scroll to the next video on YouTube, or if you're on LinkedIn or other social media platforms, I want you to hear me out for the next 30 seconds, maybe. And then you decide whether or not it's worth your time, this video or not. Because what I want to share with us today, it's really about some of the things we need to be thinking and considering about our continent, regardless of where we are in the world, whether we are inside the continent or spread across the diaspora. But I think it's really important for us as African to be asking ourselves these questions. Okay, we are in the midst of a pandemic today, a global pandemic, where the developed world is just printing money to save their economy, to finance the expensive crash of their economies, and continue to ensure that their people living standards are not gonna fall substantially. But here's what we're not seeing across the continent. This is not what we're seeing across Africa. We're not seeing the same economic measures, stimulus being distributed across the continent. We're not seeing a massive government bailout of enterprises, of companies, or legislation that ensures that our people are protected. Okay? And I am not sure about the implications of this, but here's my questions, and maybe you can help me answer these. If you are a government official, I really want us to think and consider this. Since the independence of most of our countries across the continent, since the 60s, the 50s, 60s, 70s, Angola got independent in the 75. That's where I am from. From then today, for most of the population, not really much have changed in terms of living standards. And the way things are going, without radical change in the way we do government, the next 50 years are gonna be exactly as the last ones. Okay? So here's my proposition. Are we building and putting in place system that can help us get out of the place we are stuck today, that we have been stuck in the last 50 years, right? We have to think about this. We often talk about how there is a massive flight of capital. Investors don't want to come to our countries to invest and help us build our economies. The answer is, the truth is, nobody's gonna do that for us. We have to do it ourselves, okay? And it really starts with us understanding the global capitalist system. In the capitalist system, the best in providing goods or services are the ones that are rewarded, receive great evaluation, and continue to strive in their businesses. And the worst companies, ideally, they get out of the competition because they're not creating values. And I think it's important for our African countries to think the same way, because the moment we realize, the moment we understand that the global economy itself operates in a capitalist model in a way, we will want to think about what can we do better than everybody else that attract investment. Singapore, Hong Kong today are one of the largest financial markets in the world because they created systems in place that made them attractive to foreign money, to foreign investors. They created economic conditions, they created infrastructures in place that allow them to attract investors. What are we doing in our country, in our countries across the continent, that makes us susceptible to bring foreign money, to bring attract investor? Do we have the internet, the telecommunication, the communication infrastructure in place that will allow some and investors from the US or Europe to be in touch with the CEO in Angola, in Kinshasa, uh, to facilitate negotiation, trade? Do we have the electricity infrastructure, the water infrastructure that would allow us to have large manufacturing companies that create jobs to the economy? Do we even have these things in place? We haven't figured out how to provide electricity to our people. We haven't figured out how to move water across the nation to provide clean water when our countries are literally filled with rivers of water, clean water. So this is the kind of things we have to think about, we have to consider as the continent, as individual nations, because no one is gonna come to save us. China is coming, investing in the continent at a very high cost to the African economies. We are being burdened by debts that we will never be able to repay. And as a result, what we're gonna be left with is our generation and my kids generation will have unsustainable debts to continue to try to manage, at the same time trying to build the nation. It's not realistic. It's not the best way to build nation. I don't understand about governance or politics. I understand business. And what we know about business is you can't go so long just borrowing and borrowing without creating any possible way to create revenue, to create ways to repay the debt. It's not sustainable. And we can't close our eyes to this reality. Angola spends 50% of the budget just on paying back the debts. When are we gonna have time to invest in education, in clean energy, in cybersecurity that is a big national security threat today? So we really have to start thinking seriously about the future of our continent. For governments, leaders in the religious space or in political space, I believe it's really time to start thinking beyond whatever our current office is, our current position is, and to look into what legacy we are building, what country are we leaving behind for these kids and the next generations of African coming up. Because so far, the last half a century, we have very little to show in terms of improving the living standards of our people. And I'm sure a lot of the political elite across the continent, some of them I get to meet here in the US, some of you guys go to Europe, are seen there, taking trips. You see how others have organized their countries, how they have helped their people improve their living standards, having access to actual healthcare system that in a way helps keep the country or at least a decent number of people functioning. What would it take for us to build better healthcare system for our people? We still have one of the highest mortality rate in the world. Compared to other continents, we are the worst in terms of mortality rate, in terms of food production, not because we don't have arable lands, farming lands. In most of the in most of our countries, actually we don't have to cut down forests to grow food. We have readily available land to grow food. Why aren't we growing food to feed our people? We have people starving to death, children with malnutrition. Why aren't we doing things that we should have done 20, 30 years ago, the same promises that our fathers, our grandparents made at the dawn of independence in the 1950s and 60s are the same promises we hear in almost every elections across the continent. We have to find ways to help our people have a better, improved living standards and condition. And for us living in the diaspora, we can help. We can mentor people in the continent. We can help them start businesses. We can put our money in the continent instead of just keeping them here. We can buy investments in the continent. But also, we need our leadership in the continent to create some level of stability and predictability. Because guess what? People do not invest in turbulent environment. People do not invest in economies with unpredictable inflation rate, with unpredictable laws. We don't In Angola, this still happens all the time. Someone buys a land and they want to build a house, and then a general comes and takes the land for themselves and resell it and make money. Like, we have to get serious, right? It's not like there is no courts, there is no rule of law. We have to start taking these kind of things really serious. We have to respect private properties. We have to create mechanisms, systems in place that holds people accountable, that respects private citizens, human rights. You know, personally, I don't care about someone wanting to stand power for life if they are capable of providing living standard to their people. If we want to build monarchy, whatever, go ahead and build monarchy. But what I don't think is the best way to govern our nations is to keep people in starvation mode. It's to keep people massively unemployed. Is to keep healthcare systems, education system defunded, unfunded, while the elite takes trip to Europe, to the US, and sends their kids outside to get the best education, while our classrooms don't have seats or textbooks and so forth. That's the struggle, really, right? So this is not to roast the African elite or the African governments, or president, whoever. No, it's about us coming together and think about the next 50 years. It's about that. It's about how do we train the next generation of African to take on the challenges of our continent. We can't continue relying on Russia, on China for our technology. We can't continue relying on European pharmaceutical company for us to get vaccines. We can't continue relying on imported food and just basically everything for us to continue existing as people. The continent is vast. We have the resources. We have to train our people to build industries. To build industries. That's how you generate employment. So this video already went way over to what I was hoping this to be, but my hope is that we will be able to actively engage and take on these conversations and start creating plans, actions, and not shelf them in the drawers, but actually do things that will create tangible results, that will lift the quality of life of our people and the next generation of Africans when they travel to Europe, it's not because they are trying to escape from the miserable living conditions in their home country, but they will be traveling across the world as tourists because they want to explore the world, they want to know what else is out there. uh, our people are not gonna be drowning at the Mediterranean, trying to escape wars, trying to escape unemployment. That's really my hope, and that's what I believe we have the potential to create across the continent of Africa. If you're an African living in the continent or in the diaspora and would like to connect, would like to think about investment opportunities, would like to talk about business ventures across the continent, feel free to reach out. My email is gonna be left here in this video, and I really hope to be connecting with some of you soon. So have a wonderful day, and I look forward to hearing about the great things you are working on across the continent. So have a great day.